This is MakerGalaxy.
We're always talking about the future of design, the future of technology, the future of making. In a world where disease and sickness can be identified via a sensor and a mobile device. A world where museum visits can be experienced virtually across the world via a robot. How do we find the next big thing? MakerGalaxy is a show that explores the crossroads of design, technology, and the future of making. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Simon Martin, and this week we talked with Patricia Gruits of Boston-based Mass Design Group. Patricia, along with the talented designers and architects that she works with at Mass, have been focusing on design for social innovation with projects ranging from buildings to smaller furniture concepts for international communities in need. We'll talk with Patricia about everything from how she got her design career started with a focus on social innovation, how Mass approaches design problems as a non-profit organization, to how somebody like you can get involved with designing for impact, and more. Today's episode is brought to you by the Objet 500 Connect 3 from Stratasys, the world's only color and multi-material 3D printer. Offering incomparably brilliant and consistent colors, plus transparent colors, the Objet 500 Connect 3 lets you create the most true-to-life modeling possible. Find out more at stratasys.com. Welcome, Patricia. We'll get into the Mass Design Group in a little bit, but before we do, we want to know, where can we find the best breakfast on earth, and what should we get there?
Well, the best breakfast on earth, or at least the best breakfast in Boston, is going to be at Zapdig's, which is a Jewish deli, and they have an amazing smoked salmon. They also have amazing corned beef hash, great eggs, kind of a very typical Jewish breakfast. It's really good. I don't know if there's a typical Jewish breakfast, actually, but
Awesome.
It's a really great deli. Yeah.
I'll be sure to check that out next time I'm up there. So thanks.
It's actually
for the
technically
tip.
in Brooklyn. No problem.
So let's start from the beginning. Who are you, Patricia? And can you tell us a little bit more about your background and how you got started developing products?
Sure. So my name is Patricia Gruits, and I am trained as an architect. I got my degree in architecture both as like a bachelor's degree and had like a background as well in fiber and fiber arts. Oddly enough, that's come in handy working now with Mass and in the developing world. And I got my master's of architecture as well. And while I was in school, actually, became really interested in social design and social impact design, sort of by chance. It started out with a product that we were developing, combining technology and textiles. And that product turned into its own nonprofit called the Portable Light Project, and it essentially distributes a sustainable source of power and light in the developing world to areas without access to either the grid or to electricity, or they're too remote or just too removed to have access to power regularly. And so this personal device really assists people in having sort of a sustainable source of power and light. And so from that product, it developed into a nonprofit that now is sort of primarily focused in Latin America and South America, particularly in Brazil. And so that's kind of how I got my start sort of in school. It started as a student project and then became kind of its own entity after school. I moved out to Boston to be a part of that project and work with the team here. And from there started teaching other students. I was contacted by a colleague or a friend at RISD who was interested in starting a sustainable or sort of a social enterprise course at RISD in their industrial design department. So I started teaching at RISD there for about 3 years, had a wonderful time, and in that time period started working with a group that was doing a sustainable classroom, sustainable schoolhouse in Costa Rica. And there's a lot of overlap between that project and what I'm doing now at Mass. both in terms of like the scale of the work, but also the desire to kind of create innovative solutions that are user-centered and are really focused on creating a locally based tradition, or locally based architecture. And so from there, I started working with MAS, and I'm here now. I've been with MAS now for over a year and a half, working as a designer, architect, and project manager for primarily at this point all of our education projects. So we have a project specifically with African Wildlife Foundation to develop conservation schools throughout East Africa. And so one of my main responsibilities here at MAS is to design and lead these sort of series of projects.
Awesome. And so let's back up for a little bit, and just can you tell us a little bit more about this global light concept that you were talking about? I mean, how did you go from student project to having a functioning nonprofit? I mean, that's not a small step. I mean, how did you make that work?
Sure. So, I mean, and like I said, it sort of started. It's called the Portable Light Project, and it started as a school project really focused in the design department at the University of Michigan with a faculty member called Sheila Kennedy, who really led the project and continued to lead it. And so it was really just an idea about flexible solar panels and sort of this new technology that was coming out around sort of silicon-based, marine-grade photovoltaics that were no longer glass-based. And so the real question was around, what can we do with these flexible solar panels that we can't do with glass-based? What are the benefits, what are the pros, and how do we really, through design, amplify this new technology to create solutions that previously were not available? And so that really led to this idea about integrating. The solar panels, the glass-based solar panels are very heavy. They're easily breakable. They cost tons to ship. They use a lot of carbon to create. And the silicon-based flexible photovoltaics are really lightweight. They're portable. And what we discovered is that you can actually sew through them. And so with this sewing technology, which is kind of ubiquitous around the world, or weaving technology too, we started to partner with a group, an indigenous community in Mexico called the Huichol. And they have a strong weaving tradition that goes back to the descendants of the Aztecs, so it goes back a long time. And we partnered with an anthropologist there, with these women on the ground who were weavers, and started to integrate this technology kit, which we call the Portable Light Kit, which is essentially a photovoltaic, a small electronics box and battery, and an LED, really a high brightness LED. And so by integrating those into this textile, we created something that was essentially a portable lantern that was really still very lightweight, and that could transform from something that you would sort of carry around on your bag to an actual lantern that really spreads this high brightness LED to create really effective ambient light.
That's awesome. And so this is still something that's going on?
It is. I've sort of been involved with the project through its inception. There was a bunch of us that were involved as students, as well as I mentioned, sort of our faculty member, Sheila Kennedy. She's really sort of continuing to spearhead the project. It's going really well. We actually have used it a bunch at MAS as well. It's a really just kind of useful portable light.
As you mentioned earlier, you are currently with MAS Design Group in Boston. So for those who might not know, what is MAS Design, and what is your guys' mission or approach to design, so to speak?
Sure. So MAS Design Group is a nonprofit interdisciplinary design firm. We have offices in Boston, which is where I am, but we also have offices in Port-au-Prince and Kigali in Rwanda. And since 2008, MAS has really been working. We started working in Rwanda. It was actually our first project, working with Partners in Health, which is a sort of leader in global health. And we were working with them to develop a hospital called the Butaro District Hospital in a very rural, remote region of Rwanda. I think at the time there was around 400,000 people, and there was only one doctor in this district. And so MAS and PIH sort of partnered at that point. MAS was really sort of in its infancy, really just a group of friends sort of working together to sort of create what becomes now MAS and the way that we work. But at the time, it was really just to really help and get involved in this kind of global health movement as designers and see how design could really create an impact. And so our philosophy now from that project has really developed into an idea that well-designed buildings can directly improve people's lives. Mass.
I believe that.
And that's really what we learned a lot from Bataro. The process that we started with was really one of immersion, sort of really engaging the local community, which really sort of required a lot of investment, sort of to understand different needs. It was a lot of collaboration with doctors, with innovators, with engineers, with the ministry, to sort of see the communities and the user point of view in this design. What was the way that we were going to have the greatest impact? And that's really something that's carried through now to all of our projects. We really sort of first focus on the impact of the building, this immersion into the community, the designer designing from the user's point of view, and this interdisciplinary approach. And that allows us to not only deliver sort of a very context-appropriate, safer, healthier facility, but it also creates one that's sort of based in dignity and providing dignity through design. And that's the part about working in these contexts and specifically working at Mass that has been really rewarding.
Excellent. And so I've been hearing lately about some of these projects. I mean, yours is more in the realm of architecture, but I'm just curious because I was reading recently that the one laptop per child initiative, the laptops have been breaking down as of late, and so now these classrooms are filled with broken laptops. And so while the idea was great, the communities were not left with the knowledge of how to keep this thing running. So how do you guys kind of integrate a new way of thinking or a way of fixing or a way of sustaining what it is that you're doing in these new communities? Because you can't be there at all times. So do you guys do anything along the lines of helping these communities just keep these ideas going, or how does that work for you guys?
Yeah, it's a huge part of Mass's model. We're not only interested in designing better buildings, but also empowering the people who build them. And so we realized this also, early on, that in order to build a truly resilient building, it requires an investment beyond the facade or beyond just what it looks like in the moment or our involvement. It really demands community engagement. And so part of that is what I was just talking about, was sort of starting every project with community engagement. But it also means that we're integrating job training, construction workshops, craft development into the construction process. But we're then building marketable job skills. We're fostering empowerment and really spreading these kind of safer, healthier building practices. And, we really do believe, and I think the way that we avoid sort of the pitfalls of other sort of projects, which sort of are this sort of design and drop method or one-off method, which really is about just sort of providing a product and then leaving. We really believe that the knowledge to construct, maintain, learn from, and replicate this new infrastructure is the key, the key to this positive change.
How do you guys determine when a problem is ready to be solved by design, and how do you even begin that process? I mean, do you have people in the field, or do these job requests come to you? I mean, how do you make this happen?
Sure. So, our clients now, we started working with Partners in Health, which is sort of a leader in local health, but now we work for everything from nonprofits that are dealing either in healthcare, education, housing, even ones that are doing job training themselves and just need the infrastructure to support their programs through governments and ministries, and even manufacturers, furniture manufacturers, for example. And what it is that a lot of people are looking for a partner, and that's, I think, how Mass sort of situates ourselves, where we're, again, not just dropping design into the field or dropping a building into someone's yard. We're actually partnering with foundations and nonprofits that are also on the ground. We have teams in Haiti, we have teams in Rwanda, we have teams in Congo. And so we're on the ground with our partners, helping them to really amplify their mission. And so a lot of people are coming to us to sort of partner with us to create and support the programs that they already have in place to see greater impact. And that greater impact is coming through really thoughtful design decisions and collaboration.
Excellent. And then can you tell us a little bit about your guys' design process? I mean, every landscape has its own benefits and pitfalls, but I mean, in the realm of what you're doing, I mean, how do you guys start? I mean, you send some of the crew to the location, but I mean, after that, I mean, how does the research, how does the actual design, and what you were saying, how do you keep the systems, the operations moving? I mean, how does your design process work when doing this kind of social innovation?
Sure. So I'll start by sort of saying like that our team itself at Mass is multidisciplinary. I mean, I'd say primarily we are an architecture firm, and so that might have certain sort of ideas about what that means. But what's different and I think unique about Mass is not only that we're a nonprofit, but also that we have industrial designers, engineers, we have researchers, we have an epidemiologist on staff at Mass, we have a development team, as well as like a videographer, which really helps sort of tell stories. So what we sort of provide at Mass is this sort of interdisciplinary approach to all projects. And I think that lets us have like a really broad vision to help understand the problem at hand. And that also means that early on, our process might include a lot of research. It typically includes a lot of research. It typically also includes sending a team on the ground to do this emergent, to really understand even what the vision is and help with a lot of visioning and even strategy for the foundation. We might be approached by the head of a foundation who has a certain idea of what a need is, what need they're after, what they think the building or the infrastructure should be. And then we meet with the team on the ground. And it might just be slightly different, or maybe instead of 3 classrooms, they need 6 classrooms in a library, or, there's just different ways that priorities realign. And so a lot of what we do in the initial phases is really just trying to align a vision for what the project is going to be with all the stakeholders involved. And so immersing ourselves in the community, designing from this user point of view, and really taking this interdisciplinary approach within Mass, but then also collaborating with experts in these fields. And if we're working in global health, we partner with experts in global health. If we're working with education, we partner with educators and planners that can help us really understand some of the issues and the pitfalls, as well as where we can really have an impact in designs that we can then design for it.
So what do the industrial designers do, might I ask?
Sure. So a lot of what we've been doing lately is dealing around furniture.
Okay.
So a lot of the furniture that we've been designing, specifically the cholera treatment center furniture, all of the projects that we've been working on in Rwanda as well have sort of furniture design that's all custom made. Basically, it's just as sort of affordable for us or for the client to sort of have it all designed and custom made as it is for it to be purchased off the shelf. So it allows for a lot of really exciting opportunities for customization.
So what problem is that solving?
I think in a lot of ways that problem is looking at, like in terms of that specific scope of work, depending on the piece of furniture, when we're talking about it being sort of a way of outfitting sort of an architectural building or outfitting like a portion of a building, we're really talking about job creation, providing more opportunities within the local context for enterprise, for training or skill building. When we're talking about things like the cholera treatment center chair, it's really a chair that's designed for a cholera patient, which has specific sort of inputs and user needs and actual functions that go into them, the design. And it's currently a chair which does not exist. So that's kind of also a really interesting new product.
We've been seeing an increase in interest for social innovation or impact design, whatever you want to call it, changing the landscape for the next generation of architects and designers. So do you think that we're going to be seeing a surge of young designers coming out of design schools in the next few years, maybe let's say a couple decades, who say, I want to redesign a water purifying method for a remote village versus I want to design the next great basketball shoe or Ferrari? I mean, how do you see that kind of changing the general scope of the new breed of designers?
Well, I think you're already seeing the change happen. I mean, when I was coming out of school, and part of the reason why I was teaching at RISD is because there was a huge interest in the student population to get involved in social impact design. And that was sort of, you're seeing it now. That was at RISD in 2010, but you're seeing a lot of that happen throughout different schools throughout the United States and even abroad. You're seeing it where entire programs are now being developed around this idea of creating impact through design, and designers being brought to the table in areas like global health or education, where previously they were really not invited to start to be a part of the discussion. And so I think that's really the exciting part, is that one, there's a lot more opportunity for students, for young people to get involved in this, and most of it coming from them, from their desire to sort of be a part of it. And then three, I think that there's more opportunity. I think the value of design is starting to be recognized, and people are starting to ask for design. You now have the Gates Foundation advertising for a designer to come join their team, which I think is pretty awesome and pretty transformative.
Totally awesome. And then, I mean, to add to that, let's say there's a student listening right now who may want to just switch up their portfolio and is looking for inspiration for projects that they are capable of doing right now without having to travel to another continent. I mean, what kind of stuff do you guys look for in portfolios for this kind of design? I mean, is it very heavy research based? I mean, how do you guys break down the skills of what you're looking for in the next industrial designer or young architect to join your team?
Sure. So, I mean, I think because we're interdisciplinary, we're looking for people who are really interested in the type of work that we're doing, that are hardworking, have a passion for it, and that kind of shows through any portfolio. And I'd say in terms of the skills, I would say that there's not much of a difference between maybe the skills that we're looking for and the skills that any design firm is really looking for. I think that's kind of our whole mission, is that people in resource limited settings don't deserve a bare minimum design. They deserve the best design. And they deserve buildings that have beauty and dignity and the latest technologies, and, that are actually embracing this idea of beauty and dignity in spaces. And so we're looking for designers that are talented and interested in this work. And I think, as I was saying, a lot of people are, talented designers aren't wanting to work for Nike or Reebok or come out of school and work for a big corporation. They're wanting to work for a smaller startup firm like Mass that, gets their hands dirty and might send them to Africa every once in a while, and and also, create really amazing buildings or products for people who really need them.
Very well said. And then to add to that, what about somebody who is an experienced product designer or mechanical engineer with a really great idea? Let's say, for the sake of this conversation, it's a new shoe design that is cheap to manufacture and is capable of storing energy after walking all day. Are there organizations out there for product designers to reach out to, or is there like a nonprofit Kickstarter route of going about and getting these ideas out there? I mean, how do these people output these concepts?
Yeah, there are different kinds of grants available. I know Changemaker is one that has, changemaker.org has a lot of grants, especially in the student realm. There's a lot of opportunities for funding to sort of kickstart a project. I mean, also just saying the name Kickstarter, Indiegogo, all of these kinds of venues that are now available to sort of really, sort of finance small investments through, sort of to kickstart a project is really exciting. There are a couple out there. I'm trying to think. I'm missing the name off the top of my head, but there are a few. Anyway, you can sort of open source the design and have someone manufacture for you. Maybe that's not that important to say, but I don't know the name. No, but I think my biggest suggestion would just be to sort of look at these websites and sort of organizations that are happening. I mean, even IDSA, I mean, RISD, for example, for those of you on the East Coast, RISD and Brown put together a Better World by Design conference every year. It's coming up in October, and it's a great way to kind of understand what else is happening in this field of social impact design.
On top of all this, how would you say that advancements in additive manufacturing, software simulations, etc., have sped up bringing these solutions to life compared to even 5 years ago? I mean, on top of that, I mean, are you guys more in the realm of the industrial design side of what you're doing? Are you guys helping kind of create little fab lab centers or anything of the sort? Because when I was speaking to Linnell Cameron a few months ago, she was really excited about this concept of bringing 3D printing to these communities. So what's your guys' stance on this new way of making products real and how it can help these communities?
I mean, 3D printing, I think, is really fantastic. I mean, we see it a lot used here as an iterative process, maybe a quick way to sort of prototype. But now we're also seeing it as a way just to create the final product. And I think it's really exciting. Mass is involved with setting up the first architecture program in Rwanda. And so a lot of the opportunity is really to develop a new sort of generation of architects and designers in the developing world, or especially in sub-Saharan Africa, that have access to these kinds of tools and technologies as well to really prototype their own ideas and create their own solutions. And I think that is a really exciting new frontier.
Okay, one last question for you, Patricia. As a designer with a solid foundation in social innovation, what is one piece of advice that you could give our listeners who may want to pursue designing products or housing in the nonprofit sector?
The advice that I always give people when they ask what they should be doing or what they should do is, I tell them really just to listen to themselves and see what it is that they really are interested in. And if you love what you're doing, other people will sort of respond to it. I think in terms of social impact and working in this field, I think it's really, sorry, I'm going to start my whole answer over. I think in terms of working in this field of social impact, it's really important to align yourself with good partners and good people. And that means people that may or may not have the same background as you. It means may or may not have a design background either. And I think what that does is that allows you to see things from different perspectives. And without that, any design that you come up with on your own is not going to be half as good as what you can do when you collaborate.
Very well said. Well, on that note, Patricia, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Today's episode was brought to you by the Objet 500 Connects 3 from Stratasys, the world's only color and multi-material 3D printer. Offering incomparably brilliant and consistent colors, plus transparent colors, the Objet 500 Connects 3 lets you create the most true-to-life modeling possible. Find out more at stratasys.com. Thanks for checking us out today, and if you'd like to find out more about Patricia and the work that she and Mass Design Group are doing, be sure to head over to massdesigngroup.org. On our next episode, we'll be talking to the designer behind a new luggage concept that expands a carry-on bag into a larger check-in style suitcase that will be launching on Kickstarter in the next couple of weeks. I'm your host, Simon Martin. Stay tuned and check in with us next week on MakerGalaxy.
A production of EBD Media.